Many people dream of buying a cheap property in Spain and transforming it. And on paper, it sounds simple. Find a property, hire a builder and renovate. But the reality can often be very different. Depending on location, your experience is going to be very different, say, buying a property in one of the big Spanish cities compared to in an expat area on the coast, or even in an inland village like where I recently purchased. Then, of course, you've got the language barrier, because if you don't speak Spanish, that is really going to limit your options. You're going to be stuck to having to use English-speaking tradesmen, and they really charge. Then, of course, as well, you've got an unexpected thing that can often happen, and that is the fact that even if you do speak Spanish, and I speak Spanish well, just the fact that you're English can often mean that you're going to get overcharged. And that's something that I want to talk about in today's video particularly. And I'm also going to speak about a friend on the coast who's also been here for over 2 decades that recently had a terrible experience himself. So let's jump into it. Okay, so why does location make a difference? Well, as I mentioned, buying in one of the Spanish cities, you know, Madrid, Barcelona, Malaga, Valencia, is going to be different to buying in a small inland village. At the same time, buying a property in one of the expat areas is going to be a different experience to inland or a city. Now, if you are buying in a city, your costs are going to be generally higher purely because it's a city. You know, that's what goes with that territory. If you're buying in one of the coastal areas, particularly an expat coastal area, again, you're typically going to find that you are going to pay more. It's just the way of the world, unfortunately. The cheapest option is to buy, say, in a small Spanish inland village. The cost of the properties are cheaper, and typically salaries here are a lot lower, so overall the jobs are cheaper. Now, let's talk about the language barriers, because as I mentioned, I speak Spanish pretty well. I've been here 21 years. However, just because you speak the language doesn't necessarily mean that everything is going to be simple. And I recently had a quote which was an exceptional overcharge. Now, to give you an idea, this terrace that I'm standing on, I wanted this waterproofing, and I wanted some water damage repairs made to the bathroom and kitchen ceilings, which are directly below this terrace. Now, I ended up getting a local tradesman in, and I got a quote, this quote here, for over 7,000 euros. I ended up doing the job myself. I've waterproofed the terrace, I've repaired the ceilings downstairs, and I've bought the tiles for the terrace as well to go on, and the whole lot, a whisker under 700. Now, I understand that a tradesman's got to make a living, but 10 times the cost is extortionate. And I'm going to be honest, I know the reason for this, and it's not one that you probably may think of, but it's simply because I'm English. Now, there does seem to be this assumption, and I'm not saying it's the same with all tradesmen, but I've heard this story multiple times. I've experienced it myself. My dad, years ago, when he was buying property here, had exactly the same experience. But there seems to be this assumption at times that simply because you're a foreigner and you're English, it's easy money. They seem to feel that if you're English, you're rolling in money. So that is something you need to certainly look out for. Another thing as well recently that happened was that one of my friends that's actually been here in Spain as well for more than 2 decades, he recently took on a builder to do some work in a property that he's bought, and unfortunately he chose to pay the builder up front, which is something you should never do. You know, the best thing you can do is maybe, if you need to, is buy some of the materials up front and then do stage payments each week as the work is being done. But he chose to pay the builder up front. The builder come in, he'd done a day or two's work. It was the worst work I've ever seen in my life. It was literally like a child had done it. Completely unprofessional. But worse still is he took my friend's money and he's run. They can't get hold of him. The builder has been seen in the area, but he's ignoring my friend's messages. He's ignoring his calls. He's basically done a runner. So the reality of buying a cheap property in Spain isn't always simple. Now, this can happen obviously in the UK, but these are certainly things that you need to look out for and be aware of. Okay, next, let's talk about English speaking tradesmen, because this is again something else that people always don't think about. So let's imagine you buy a cheap property in Spain and you're thinking, well, what I'll do is I'll just use an English speaking builder. Great, that's absolutely fine. There's no problem with that. It's a good thing if you can't speak the language, because obviously you can communicate exactly and precisely on what you want to be done. But here's the kicker. If you're in Spain, you don't speak the language and you're going to use an English speaking tradesman, a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, you're going to be paying a premium. And the reason for that is because they know that you've got limited options. If you can't speak the local language, you're left with no option but to use somebody who you communicate with. And to give you, put that into some sort of context, we had a new water boiler, a new water heater fitted downstairs. My wife decided that she was going to call somebody who had been recommended to her, which was an English speaking tradesman, an English guy, 20 minutes away on the coast. He wanted €850 to buy a new boiler and fit it. I ended up buying a boiler and getting it fitted for €270. I bought the boiler myself and then I just used a local tradesman. So the differences can be vast. So that's something else to take into consideration, because your budgets can soon explode if you're having to use maybe English speaking tradesmen. So what are my tips for making sure that the experience of renovating a cheap property in Spain is as pleasurable as it can be and as fun as it can be? Well, number one, of course, is learn the language, even if it's just the basics. The basics are really going to open up a lot of doors. That means you're not going to be having to rely on English speaking tradesmen and paying that premium we just mentioned. Even just a basic bit of Spanish is really going to help you. Two is get multiple quotes. Now, I had quotes for work done in this house that for the same work ranged in quotes from 4,000 to 20,000. Number three is use local contacts. Speak to neighbours, find out if there's a builder that they can recommend, how much a job like that should charge. Another good thing is as well is here, for example, in my village at the town hall, the Ayuntamiento, they have a list of tradesmen that they recommend. So this is something that's really worth thinking about. And then number four is be hands-on. Many jobs are much simpler than what you actually realise. If you're able to do them yourself, again, you're going to save a lot of money. So what is the reality? Well, of course, there are going to be challenges, but that, at least for me, is all part of the fun. But there's also incredible opportunities, particularly if you start looking at property inland. Here in inland Spain, you can buy properties for the fraction of a cost of a property in the UK. And with a little bit of patience, a little bit of effort, and some great ideas in your head, you can really turn these inland houses into something truly special. So what's been my reality? Have I enjoyed the renovation in this property in Spain that I bought last year? I've enjoyed it thoroughly, to the point where I've even said to my wife, should we buy another one and do another one? But as I said, there are some key takeaways. First of all, learn a language, even if it's just a little bit. That's really going to change the experience for you, and you're going to get the option to work with local tradesmen where you're going to get the best possible price instead of paying a premium purely for using English speaking tradesmen. The second one is watch your quotes, get multiple quotes, don't make assumption on cost, because prices can vary greatly. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up, but I'd love to know, are there any particular videos that you'd like me to put out on any specific part of this renovation? Maybe it's cost, maybe it's finding local tradesmen, whatever it may be. Let me know whatever you want to know in the comments, and I promise I will reply to you. Also, if you've enjoyed this video, please remember to hit that like and the hype button. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely free to do. It won't cost you a penny, but it really helps this channel to grow, and it gives me the encouragement to keep making more videos for you. Anyway, enjoy whatever you're doing for the rest of the day, and I'll catch you in the next one.